So I think it's finally time that we talk about Salem. With Volume 6 on the horizon, I wouldn't be surprised that if we finally get Salem's origin story, along with Ozpin's, and find out exactly how those two are interconnected. So I think it's only fitting that I make at least a couple videos outlining different theories on that. In particular, this video is the theory that I think is most likely as to where Salem and Ozpin came from and how they're actually connected. Simply put, I believe that Ozpin and Salem are the physical manifestations of the gods in the world of Remnant. We learned about the gods in Crow's story to Team Ranger back in Volume 4, the god of light and the god of darkness, how they were continually fighting, one creating, one destroying, and then they finally came together to make one final creation, that being the human race. And I believe when the human race was created, that the gods each created a being in their image that holds their ideals and holds more power than the average person. Those being Ozpin for the god of light and Salem for the god of darkness. Now, that being said, I don't believe that Salem and Ozpin are gods themselves, but they are beings created specifically by the gods who hold more power than the average person, as we've already seen. And they seem to hold ideals very similar to the respective gods, which is actually the first point as to why I believe this theory to be true. Because let's take a look at what Salem's power actually is. The power to control Grimm. The Grimm being made and first created by the god of darkness. Now, no other person has displayed ability to control Grimm, other than Salem. So it seems very similar, and we don't know if she can actually create Grimm. We saw the Grimm crawl out of the black pool at the beginning of Volume 4, but whether that was due to Salem's actual power or whether it was just that's where they're created and she just decided to make her base there, not really sure. That hasn't really been discussed in the series overall. If there's other information about that, I'd love to know what that is. But we definitely know that Salem can control the Grimm. The Seer Grimm that she used to kill Lionheart, as far as we know, and the Grimm that she was using throughout the series. The ones that she has scouring Beacon, for example, for the Relic. Now, the only way I'd think she'd be able to gain this power is by having it gifted to her by the god who created the Grimm overall. I don't really see any other way that someone who just had magic would be able to control the Grimm. Maybe, but I don't know. It doesn't really seem like that would be the case. And then there's Ozpin, the only other person, or the only person so far that we know who actually has magic in the world of Remnant. Because all of the magic from the Maidens, Crow, and Raven came from Ozpin to start with. And yeah, Salem might have magic of her own, but we don't actually know how she's controlling Grimm and things like that. Granted, she did attach Cinder's arm, the Grimm arm, so there might be some magic associated with that, but it hasn't been confirmed yet. So, as far as we know, Ozpin's magic. What exactly is his magic? Well, we've seen with the Maidens that it is the power to control the elements without the use of dust. Not only control the elements, but to create the elements. They can create storms, they can create weather, they can create a giant fire or ice sword out of thin air. Bottom line, creation. All of his magic is based around creation. Yes, Crow and Raven is transforming from one form to another, but that could be seen as a form of creation in and of itself. So one is creation and the other is controlling Grimm, which Grimm being beings of destruction. It seems very fitting that they are holding the powers of the gods themselves if they were created by the gods. It just makes sense to me, but, you know, let me know what you guys think, if this seems viable or if there's a few points that I'm a bit fuzzy on or anything like that. The next point, though, as to why I think this is likely is because Ozpin has all of the relics already. He had them all and hid them in the different schools. Now, I don't really know how else he would have been able to get all of the relics if he wasn't, you know, pretty much given them at the beginning. Because, frankly, if we consider that entire story that Crow had said, where the two brothers created the human race, and along with that were the 4 relics of creation, destruction, choice, and knowledge, that have the power to change the world, as Crow put it. So by change the world could also mean destroy the world. I don't think you'd create a race that has equal ability to create and destroy and just give them power to literally do whatever they want with the world. A world that these gods created themselves. I think that they would have the wisdom to not really just give a newborn that kind of power. They'd let them experience the world first and possibly create Salem and Ozpin to take care of those relics and kind of oversee the human race, which, of course, at this point kind of went awry, that Salem's trying to wipe them all out and Ozpin is trying to stop Salem. But, you know, the initial thought behind it all could have been something along those lines. And then Salem and Ozpin were given the relics. Maybe Salem wanted to use the relics to wipe out the human race. Ozpin took them and ran. Wasn't able to actually stop Salem at the time, but was able to get the relics away from her and prevent her from actually destroying the world, but didn't actually stop her. So that could be a possible explanation as to why things are the way they are now, and things are just progressing from there. The final point is actually the immortality that Ozpin and Salem have themselves. Their longevity and long-lasting life. Ozpin already said that his immortality was because he was cursed by the gods, that he wasn't able to stop Salem, and so he was cursed to live on. Now, granted how the story tells it, the two gods came together and made the human race, but it didn't actually say that they continued to get along from that point. So they came together, made that one creation, and then are continuing to fight on, possibly through Salem and Ozpin. Maybe the god of destruction didn't like how the human race was leaning towards more creation. That with the human race they started to build towns, build cities, and prosper. Well, that didn't really sit right with the god of darkness, so he created someone who could control the Grimm. And the god of light created someone who could fight against that. It kind of makes sense and would fit with how the story's playing out now. And then Ozpin takes the relics, goes off. He wasn't able to defeat Salem, and now has to continually reincarnate. And the god of light, putting his faith in the human race, makes it so Ozpin will reincarnate within a human who shares those ideals. Shares ideals similar to Ozpin's, or rather, ideals similar to the god of light. And they will be fighting for the light, for the creation, for the human race themselves, and will become essentially a beacon of hope and a defender of the human race, along with the people fighting alongside them. Whereas Salem is controlling the Grimm, fighting for despair, wants to watch the world burn, and the people fighting alongside her are supporting those ideals. Because as far as we know, Salem doesn't reincarnate the same way that Ozpin does. So maybe when she was created by the god of darkness, she was given immortality that way. And the god of light gave Ozpin immortality in a different way. Ozpin calls it a curse, but I'm not really sure how much of a curse it is. Maybe he wants to rest in peace and just isn't able to, or maybe he's just tired of reincarnating through many people and seeing so many people's lives changed through this. But overall, it seems very likely, to me at least, that Ozpin and Salem are holding the ideals of the gods with their immense power over everyone else in the world of Remnant. It would seem that they would have to be created specifically for that purpose, and the only people that we know of who could create beings like that are the gods themselves. Whether they were created right at the beginning, where the human race was, which would make sense for them getting the relics, or whether they were created later on, after the human race started to progress the way that it was, and the god of darkness created Salem first, and then the light created Ozpin. I still believe that Ozpin and Salem were created by the gods to hold the gods' ideals and to essentially continue their everlasting struggle on the mortal plane itself. So, let me know what you guys think about this theory. It's a little bit of a lot to take in and kind of wrap your head around, but it would make sense and also trace Remnant's history in a roundabout way all the way back to its initial creation, which, since we did get a bit of the initial creation story back in Volume 4, it would kind of make sense that we fill in these little gaps of history. So, again, let me know what you guys think. I'm looking forward to seeing what your comments are. There's going to be quite a few more videos, hopefully before the start of Volume 6 in about 2 weeks now, I believe. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. Hope you guys are looking forward to it, as am I, and I'll see you in the next video.